In this series, we'll make a to-do app using Flutter and Appwrite. Our to-do app will be having all the code to-do functionalities. We will have user authentication. The user can view, add, delete tasks, mark them as done, delete all tasks, and view unfinished and completed tasks separately. This video assumes that you are a complete beginner and will contain all the necessary explanation. There will also be timestamps in case you want to jump into a specific section of the video. Make yourself comfortable, grab a cup of coffee, relax, and let's get straight into the video. In this video, we'll learn how to install Flutter, Docker Desktop, and run Appwrite in your local machine. We will also explore what Appwrite is, and finally we'll run our first Flutter app on an emulator. Flutter is an open source framework by Google for building beautiful, natively compiled multi-platform applications from a single code base. That is, you can build applications for Android, iOS, web, macOS, Windows, Linux, all from a single code base. First, let's install Flutter in our system. We'll go to flutter.dev. You can see this is the Flutter website. It's very beautiful. This should be your home ground for any query regarding Flutter. It's well maintained and the docs are awesome. There are several insights mentioned here and blog posts as well. You should definitely check them out. Let's go to this Get Started button. And here comes the installation guide. I have a Windows machine here, so I'll click on Windows. If you have any other operating system, then you can click on the respective buttons. So here the system requirements is mentioned, and here I have the Flutter SDK download button. So I'll click on this. I'll wait for the download to complete. After the file is downloaded, we need to extract the zip file and place it inside a folder like this, C drive/src. Make sure that you don't place it inside a program file. So we'll extract the file inside downloads. I'm using 7-zip to extract it. It's taking some time. So inside this folder, we have this Flutter folder. Let's place it inside the mentioned path, C drive/src. So inside C drive, let's make a folder with the name src. And inside this folder, we'll place that Flutter file. Let's just drag and drop this file. Now we need to update the path in the environment variable. For that, I'm just searching environment variable. And here, edit environment variables. Here, we need to select on this path, edit, and we'll add a new path. In order to add the path, let's go back to our Flutter folder. Inside the Flutter folder, you will have a bin file. Go there and just copy this path. Now click on new button if you want to add it as a new path. As you can see, I have already added this path as an environment variable, but if you haven't, then add this path and click on OK. OK. So adding a path to a system environment variable basically tells your computer that, hey, this is a path where I have installed this particular framework's executables, and refer this path to compile my code which I have written in this particular framework or in this particular language or so. Now you can check your Flutter path with this where flutter dart command. Let's go to command prompt and copy this command. And here you can see my Flutter path. Now let's run this command, flutter doctor. This command basically diagnoses and lets you know if there is problem with the Flutter installation in your system. Let's hit this command. It will take some time, so just be patient and wait for it. Okay, so here I have one issue mentioned that I don't have Visual Studio for Windows development, but I don't want to develop a Windows application right now, so I'm good to go. Just make sure that your Android toolchain kit doesn't have any issue, and it's better if you have Android Studio installed in your system. For this tutorial, I'll be using Android Studio as my IDE, but you are free to choose any IDE of your choice, like VS Code. If you scroll below, here you have the Android Studio installation guide. You can just go to the mentioned website and simply click on the download button to download Android Studio. I have Android Studio already installed in my system, so I'm skipping this part. Then you need to set up an Android emulator. I'll show you how to set up an Android emulator. Let's open Android Studio. After you open Android Studio, click on this More Action button, and then you have AVD Manager. Here you can create a virtual device, and here you can create various emulators phone, TV, Wear OS, anything you want to. Here you want to select a phone like Pixel 5, Pixel 4a, anything, and then you click on next, and then finish. And your Android virtual device is created. I have this 2 device already, so I'm not creating a device right now. Now let's download Docker Desktop in our system. Let's go to the Docker website and click on this Download Docker Desktop for Windows button. If you are on Mac or Linux, then you can download Docker Desktop for the respective operating systems. After you are done with the download, just open the exe file and allow it permission. I don't want to add a shortcut to the desktop. Then click on OK. Appwrite is backend as a service. What usually happens is, to build any modern day application, you need to use an authentication system, some real-time database, cloud functions, and storage for almost every application. A backend as a service provides you very convenient SDK which you can use in your client-side application, and you don't need to worry about writing a complete backend from scratch. What's interesting about Appwrite is it's very customizable. You have the flexibility of customizing it to your use case. So Appwrite helps you with writing and managing your project's backend from scratch and provides you with all the core APIs required to build any modern day application. Now we want to install the Appwrite Docker image to our system. So I'm going to the Appwrite website, appwrite.io, and let's click on this Get Started button, and I will be using CMD, and I'll copy this command. So before running this command, make sure that you run Docker Desktop. So I'll just open Docker Desktop, accept. I'll just skip this for now. The Docker engine is starting, it will take some time. And if I go to images, you can see I don't have a Docker image right now. Let's open C drive. Inside C drive, let's create a new folder called Docker Images. Inside Docker Images, inside this path, just type CMD to open the command prompt at this location. Let's copy this command again and let's paste this command. Hit enter. So don't worry about this. This is how a Docker image is pulled. First it shows that this Docker image doesn't exist, and then it pulls the image from the Docker hub. Yeah, now it is asking me to set up the port. I'll go with the default options. It wants me to choose a secret API key. You can give a secret key, but I'm going with the default option. I'm going with the default option localhost as the host name as well. Appwrite installed successfully. So it finally shows that Appwrite is now installed successfully. You can check it here in the Docker desktop. It's showing that this Appwrite container is running. It's running all of these containers. Let's go to our localhost. And there we go. We have the sign in page here. I'll create a new account. And click on sign up. And let's name our Appwrite project. And congratulations, your first Appwrite project is up and running. Wow, quite impressive. We have done a lot of stuff in this video. We have installed Flutter in our system. We have installed Docker Desktop in our system, and also the Appwrite Docker image, and have created our first Appwrite project. Now let's see how to start and stop the Appwrite Docker container. Go to the directory where you have placed the Appwrite folder. Click on the Appwrite folder. And inside this folder, open the command prompt and type docker compose stop and hit enter to stop the Docker container. You can also see here that the container is paused. And to start the container, hit docker compose up at the same location. And this will start the Docker container back. You can check it through the Docker Desktop application as well. Here you can see it's running all the 20 containers. And if we now go to localhost, we can see our project and the Docker image is up and running. And finally, we want to install 2 Android Studio plugins from the marketplace. You can search for Flutter. I have already installed Flutter and Dart. Dart is the programming language which Flutter, the framework, uses. This one. If you're using VS Code, just make sure that you have installed these VS Code extensions as well. After you install these plugins, you will get a new Flutter project button here. Let's click on this button. Here you need to add the Flutter SDK path. Click on this button. And from here, you can select the Flutter folder where we have installed our Flutter. Then click on OK. Click on Next. Now you need to add your project name. And of course, a description. In the organization, you need to add a domain name. For now, I'm just adding my name. And now you need to check on the platforms you are targeting. I'm just targeting for Android and iOS. I'll check them and click on Finish. Congratulations, you have created your first Flutter project. Go to Tools, click on AVD Manager, and then you can run your virtual device. I'm running this Pixel 3a. Now Android Studio will automatically detect this device, and now you need to hit the run button. And there we go. The Flutter default app is up and running. You can see if I click on this button, then this counter is also incrementing. Now let's understand the Flutter project structure. So in a Flutter project, you will be having an Android file, iOS file, and all the different files for the platforms you are targeting. We will be using these files to add in a few platform specific configurations. If you remember, we have mentioned just Android and iOS while creating this Flutter project. So we have just these 2 files. In addition to that, we have this build file where the build executables are present. Later, you will see that if we build our Android application, then it gets stored in this directory. And then we have the most important folder, the lib folder. Mostly we'll be using this folder in which we have our Dart code. Whenever you create a Flutter application, it gets start being executed from the main.dart file. So this is the starting point of your application. This is the main function from where the application starts being executed. And then we have this myapp class, which extends a stateless widget. If you don't know what stateful and stateless widget are, a stateless widget, as the name suggests, is a widget where the state doesn't changes, whereas a stateful widget, the state of the application changes. I'll just remove all of these comments, and you can press on this minimize button to close the content within this curly braces. Here you can see my app class. Here we are returning a material app, and we have passed a few parameters like the title, the theme data, and here we have passed the home page. Then we have a few files here as well. In the gitignore file, we have all the directory mentioned to ignore the history of any file or folder which we don't want to track. And then we have the pubspec.yaml and pubspec.log file. The pubspec.yaml file is this file basically tells your Flutter project that you will be using this particular dependencies or this particular assets or version of the dependencies. Let's go back to the Appwrite website, appwrite.io. And here, let's go to docs, then Appwrite for Flutter. Here you'll get the Appwrite documentation for Flutter. So first we need to create our Appwrite project. We have already done that. Now we need to add the Flutter app in the Appwrite project. Let's run Docker desktop. After Docker engine starts, let's go to the folder where we have saved the Appwrite image. Hit cmd to open the command prompt in this location. Now docker compose up. It will start the Appwrite container. You can see that the Appwrite container is now up and running. Now let's go to localhost. And here we have the Appwrite project, and it's saying that we don't have any apps as of now. We'll add a Flutter app here. Now it is asking my app name and package name. If you remember, while creating the Flutter project, we also gave it a app name and package name. Let's go back to our Flutter project. Go to Android, app, src, main, and then in this Android manifest file, we have the package name, and here we have the app name as well. So I'm going to copy this package name and paste it here. And the app name is, let's paste it here. And next, now let's go back to the Appwrite documentation. For using it with Android, we need to do some configurations mentioned here in the Android manifest.xml file. So we'll go to Android. So we'll go to Android, app, src, main, and here we have the Android manifest.xml file. Here we need to add this activity. Let's copy this activity. And we need to add this activity inside the application tag. So here we have the application tag. And let's add this activity here. If you're on a Mac, then you need to follow these instructions and do some configurations in Xcode in order to use Appwrite in your iOS emulator. I don't have a Mac here and I don't want to build my app on an iOS emulator, so I'm just skipping it. Here I'm removing this home page. I'll create a new page. First, I'll create some folders. So in this API folders, we'll later on place all the APIs, and the screens will be having all of the screens and the utilities and the themes in the respective folders. Now let's create a file here, homepage, homepage.art, and here for now I'm just let's import material.art, and I'm just creating a stateful widget for now with homepage as the name. Now it will return a scaffold. Let's return a scaffold. If you don't know, scaffold is basically a screen, and you can pass in some parameters like app bar, the body, or the floating action button. So here I'm just passing I'll pass a center widget, and as its child I'll pass a text widget which says homepage. And if you click on this show context action, it will also show some suggestion like you want to add in a constant here because this is not changing. Now I want to use this as my homepage, so I'll just pass this, hit tab, and it automatically imports the homepage from the screen folder. Now let's run the application. I'm selecting this emulator. As you can see, now the app is up and running, and the first page is our home page. If you want to quickly navigate to this homepage class, then just control click. Now suppose I want to change the background of the screen. So I'll change the scaffold background color by defining this property, background color, and colors dot red accent. And if I save this, then it will hot reload, and you can see the screen is now red. I don't want to have a red screen. Let's change this title. And let's change the theme as well. I'm going with the deep purple theme. Now let's go back to our Appwrite console. So we will copy this and add it in the dependency. Now let's go to terminal, and in the root location of our project, hit this command, flutter pubget. And the Appwrite dependency is added to our Flutter project. After you have installed the Appwrite dependency, click on next. And here we have the instruction to initialize our client. So basically we want to initialize our Appwrite SDK so that our Flutter frontend app is able to communicate with the Appwrite project. We want this client to be available globally, so we are just defining it outside of the main function. And then we want to initialize our client. So I'll just copy this and paste it here. Okay, so we are also using this widgets flutter binding.ensure initialize to make sure that our client is being initialized before we are running the app. Now let's click on next and take me to dashboard. In the home page, let's add an app bar. If I save this, then the application gets reloaded. Let's go to the main.art file, and in the material app, debug show check banner mode, and we'll just pass false. then we don't get this banner anymore. That's it for this video. In the next videos, we'll be building the actual to-do application. Thanks for watching.